I was told I had the wrong color growing up.
And I remember listening to it once and I started crying. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a lot.
I'm about to be divorced.
Oh, wow.
I just made a wrong decision out of fear of being alone.
You talk a lot about feeling unseen. Welcome back to the Forties Formula, the podcast that blends science, soul, and a little bit of sass to help you thrive in your 40s and beyond. Now, if you've ever found yourself looking around your life thinking, I've achieved so much, but why do I still feel like something's missing? This episode is for you. So let's dive right in. Uma, we are really happy to have you here. Thank you for making time for us.
Great to be here.
So you talk a lot about feeling unseen. And I think that resonates with so many of our listeners. And especially when you talk about it as a woman of color, as a woman from this part of the world, as a woman, right? There are so many listeners that are nodding along with that. And how do you help women find their visibility?
So I was told I had the wrong color growing up.
Oh my God.
I've heard this is a thing.
Yes. My mother bought this Fair and Lovely cream from
I
India.
knew you were going to say Fair and Lovely. Oh my God.
And she made me use it every day. She was fairer skinned than me, and I was considered to be dark. And so every day as I put on that cream, I'm reminded I'm the wrong color. And in my second job, when I was working in IBM Malaysia, I took a trip to the US, my first trip to the United States. And suddenly white men were like, oh my gosh, your skin is beautiful. Yeah. And that was the first experience to unlearn, like, wait a minute, like this narrative and this message that I've been telling myself and that has been told to me, is it all wrong?
Yeah.
And particularly white men, because I was flipping business magazines at the age of 9.
Wow.
And you associate power with white men.
Yeah.
So that was the turning point for me. So I think that a lot of us are hidden, and there's so many things that we have to unlearn.
Yeah.
And it's a very hard journey, I believe, depending on what narratives you've been told, and then the stories that you tell yourself. And learning to unlearn that has been a lifetime of a journey for me so far. I am still unlearning quite a few things, but I believe that a lot of us are hidden. And that's why I created Hidden Talent to Visible Leader as a program. And I think my biggest lesson is that it's a muscle to build, to become visible. And it is deeply uncomfortable. And you have to fight against, or at least I've had to, all these things that come to your head about people might think you're just so full of yourself.
And that's interesting. I do feel like you're talking about your first visit to US, right? And these white men being like, oh my God, you're gorgeous. And I think that's something that people of color in this part of the world visiting the US might experience as well. This is an entirely different thing. And obviously that comes along with things like exotification.
I was
all
just
that,
about to say,
all
people
of that.
thought you were exotic.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's not exactly a clean cut positive. Yes. But the point is, it takes unlearning. And I think it takes being out of your regular environment to have that.
Yeah.
And I think you doing that at a young age was probably very powerful. How old were you when you went?
I was 23.
What a perfect time.
Yes.
What a perfect time when you're still very much negotiating that identity.
Also, then 2 years later, I took part in a beauty pageant in Malaysia. Just for the fun of it, because the cutoff age was 25.
I better get in.
So I picked my best friend from uni, and I was like, just for laughs, let's just do it for laughs.
Yeah.
And we laughed our way all through the finals. However, the most important thing was that they gave us all these workshops about how to write your CV. And like for Indian women, we're hairy. So they taught us how to wax.
Nice. In the preparation for the pageant?
Yeah, they took us to a waxing parlor. Like how to walk straight, you know, how to dress for work. I only wore pants for the first 10 years of my career in tech. And so I was sitting in those rooms wondering, oh my gosh, like, did I have to enter a beauty pageant to learn all this? And what about all the other women who are like me who will never get to enter these rooms?
And again, the feminist in me is great that I had to take a beauty pageant to get there, you know, but again, at the same time, wonderful that it did go deeper than skin deep, right? That there was actually some life skills that you got out of that.
Yeah.
So nowadays, you're one of these top creators on LinkedIn, right? You're one of these women that is kind of a known storyteller, especially out of this region as well. And it's so colorful and alive and authentic when you go to your page. I encourage everyone listening to go to Uma's LinkedIn and just see the vibe is so different. It's not like a staunch business, but I'm not IBM Malaysia, like, I mean, you're not IBM Malaysia anymore, but you don't get that vibe at all, right? You get this beautiful kind of, tapestry of information and color and beauty. It's wonderful. How do you help women who are so uncomfortable bringing themselves to social media to authentically present themselves like you do?
Yeah. Firstly, this is not the version that was there many years ago.
This is not Uma 1.0.
No, I'm 47 now. It's the month of June, so I used to be in software, so I always say I'm version 47.6.
That's it. I like it. That's amazing. Yes.
Yeah. What's the date today? So at the last numbers.
Yeah.
So what you see today on LinkedIn is the uncaged version of Uma.
The no shit's given Uma, right?
Yes. Yes, the I don't give a...
You can say it, girl.
Okay.
We are an explicit podcast.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Really about what other people think anymore. And I had a decent enough following because I had a very big corporate title. And I was the co-founder of Lean in Singapore, which is a community of over 7,000 now.
Wow.
And then I tripled my followership after I started writing this uncaged version of me. So I would say, like, a lot of times people come to me and say, I really want to write on LinkedIn or whatever social platforms that you're on. And the first question you should ask yourself is, where's your audience hanging out? And that's the main platform. You don't have to be on every platform if you're just starting out. And for me, professionals are on LinkedIn today. So that's my main platform. Now, most people ask this question, I want to get my voice out there, but then I'm so afraid of what people would think. And then I ask them, who are these people? Like, and what do you think they would say? They're going to say that I'm so full of myself, or that I am cocky, or that if I tell I had this woman in India who grew up in like a third-tier city, and having an apple was like luxury.
Yeah.
And so she didn't want people to judge that story.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if you do put out your story out there? And, that's the question you should keep asking yourself to peel the onion. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Well, they're going to say that, okay, if that happens, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Okay. And then if that happens, right? And then the last bit is, if all these people are going to judge the true sense of you that you're putting out there, do you really want them in your world?
Yeah, that's it.
And I say that if you are very nervous to hit post, I think that's a really good sign, because that's honesty about to go out to the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think all of us who create content in any context, we always have that moment of reservation. Is it too, for me at least, I'll share with you mine, it's like, is it too much? Am I too out there? Am I too much in people's face? And at the same time, it's like, but I don't need to worry about the haters. I need to worry about my audience.
Yeah.
Right?
You made it when you got haters.
Y'all always got haters. You get pregnant and lift a barbell, you got haters immediately. I promise you that. You got people coming at you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, that's not who it's for. So, what's that old saying? Lions don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. It's who cares if the sheep are mewing over what you say?
Yeah.
The lions are going to be like, hell yeah, girl.
Yes.
Paw.
Yes. Yes.
So.
Do you think there's this, I guess, fine line between being confident and being a bitch or being a dickhead? Because I feel like there is sometimes like this unbalance, like, like you're walking a tightrope, right? Like showing
As a woman, always.
yeah, especially because I remember when I first got a job outside of university, I was going to sound terrible saying this, but all of the female bosses I had were just, I just did not like them.
Yeah.
Whereas the male bosses felt fine. And I didn't know. I think I just had this picture in my head like, oh, women are bitches. Sorry, women.
Yeah.
But, like the men, they just, I don't know, come across differently. Do women have to be that way in order to get there?
Oh my gosh, how much time have you got? So firstly, let's talk about the tightrope, which is one of the 4 workplace biases. Too masculine, too feminine. Too masculine is you make decisions, you're confident, you're ambitious, all male advantaging terms, right? Too feminine is you are in a meeting and you have an idea and you're like, excuse me, I think maybe too feminine.
Yeah.
So both ends of the spectrum, you get penalized.
Yeah.
So I've learned to do what I call the gender judo, which is 80% of the time, I'm going to show up feminine so that 20% of the time, if I need to exercise masculine traits, I'm not going to get penalized for it. And I love that story about how you saw the female leaders versus the male leaders, because actually, as women become more successful, I believe we do have to choose between liked or respected. And as men get more successful, they are both liked and respected. And
So
that's
unfair.
yes, and there's a study that proves this from Stanford, Howard and Heidi, real life character. And one piece of paper has Howard, one piece of paper has Heidi. And the people who had Heidi said, oh, I don't know if I want to work for her. She seems very bossy. You know, exactly the same words on 2
Wow.
pieces of paper. So I think as women ourselves, we need to just check in on whether we are also having this bias on other women. We definitely do. I mean, I've certainly had a lot of women say, I am bossy and just too whatever. So yeah, it's a tightrope. And I think if you want to progress in the workplace and in male-dominated industry, what I've seen to work best is to meet people where they are. And because my only other choice was to wait for the world to change.
That's not going to happen, is it?
No.
Not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in our lifetimes necessarily.
Yeah. So if I see Amanda there, it's like, okay, Amanda, I'm going to come to you, right? You are American, you are, with everything that you bring, I'm going to come to you no matter what you think about me.
Yeah.
And then once you learn to trust me and like me, you're going to walk towards me.
Yeah.
And yes, it is mentally exhausting.
Oh, God, yeah.
But I don't know any other way, because otherwise, you just sit
The
there
door
and
is
go,
closed.
I'm the victim, right?
I'm terrible that I can't remember the title of the book, but a really good friend of mine, Dr. Kate Mason, just wrote a book about leveraging likability to become more powerful in your career.
Yeah.
And that using kind of women's innate, what's been seen as a fault as people pleasers,
Yeah.
is not necessarily, obviously people pleasing is generally something that you want to get over, but meaning use the likability piece that you've learned from that people pleasing
Yeah.
and apply it
Yeah.
as a strength.
Yeah.
And I think that, that's kind of what you're describing here, right? It's like, come, use your general,
Yeah.
you're so likable, Uma. And it's like, use that likability to get in the doors that you need
Yeah.
and then take them by the reins, girl.
And I think that's the feminine superpowers.
Yeah.
We
Damn
are
right.
emotionally intelligent, more aware. We have no qualms about wearing our hearts on our sleeve. So actually people connect with us much easier. So we should absolutely be using that to our advantage.
Yeah. And I think women, we suffer from a lot of different kind of self-imposed narratives. What you had brought up earlier with your skin color, being told it was a certain way. So then you kind of, highlighted that chapter that it must be a problem, and then realizing that you can rewrite that narrative. Women in their 40s who are so deeply ingrained in some of these narratives, they didn't have the opportunity to go to the U.S. when they were 23 and be told how beautiful they were. When you see women in our age group,
Yeah.
deeply set in narratives that do not serve them, what's
Yeah.
the first step out?
I think the first step is really asking yourself if you are living to the expectations of your full self or to the expectations of others. I am questioning everything right now in my life, including marriage. I'm about to be divorced.
Oh, wow.
It's a very loving divorce. But if I question myself on why did I agree to get married? And I actually got married much later in life, in my 40s.
Oh, wow.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. If I'm honest with myself, and I went to therapy last year, I did it out of fear of being alone, out of fear of, oh my gosh, I don't want kids, which is a whole other conversation. because women get judged for that too.
Very much so.
But I just made a wrong decision. And, we both paid the price for it. We both have responsibility towards why the relationship didn't work. But I'll just speak for myself. Like, I just went with whatever narratives were out there because I don't know otherwise. So now I'm trying to think, okay, if I built a new planet and there was like no expectations, like all these generations before me didn't exist, like what do I actually want? And I think all of us, especially women, know deep inside if the multidimensional aspects of us is actually showing up or not, because it will come through little clues. Like you might be surrounded by the people who love you the most in the world, but there is something else that something keeps knocking. Your soul, I believe, keeps knocking to say something's missing. Or you're at work and you just got promoted and you're being celebrated. And then your soul's knocking and saying, is this it? So do you have the space in your life to even listen to your soul knocking? Maybe that's the step before.
Sometimes I feel like I've got expectations on my kids and how I want them to do certain things. And there's this song, I don't know if you know it, by Linkin Park. It's called Numb. Basically, let me be who I want to be. I can't remember the exact words right now, but that I don't want to basically walk in your footsteps. And it sounds like the guy's talking to his dad or his parent. And I remember listening to it once and I started crying because I was like, fuck, I don't want my kid to go through that. But then as a mum, I can't help myself. I'm constantly have these expectations because I feel like you're my child. Maybe you can do better. But then am I putting too much pressure on him? It's like it's this whole expectation. And then that's one side of things. And then the expectation you put on yourself is like a whole different story.
Not to make you feel bad, and this is not saying this is why, but he killed himself.
Did he?
Yes, he's dead.
Oh shit! I did not know.
Again, I'm super not saying it's because
now the song,
I'm just letting you know that person is no longer alive. Who's saying that
Actually,
song.
I didn't know he was no longer alive, but because this was news a while ago.
And
Yeah,
it was like a whole thing.
Shit, but that whole song, like once I remember in the car, I was listening to it and I was listening to the words and I just started crying. I must have been near my period time, but I actually started crying and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a lot. Like when you really get down to the root of what he's saying.
Yeah, Linkin Park's actually quite deep. I would say the lyrics on Linkin Park are like definitely his poetry of pain and suffering. But the remix on that song with Jay-Z also very good.
My kids
Also
love
very
it
good.
until the other day. Just gonna little side note. They like to look at the lyrics on Spotify.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Did
obviously
you look at that?
I mean, I knew, but I thought he had the radio edit on. Clearly, he didn't have the radio edit on until my youngest, who is 7 years old, said the N-word. And I was like, okay. Let's take that away from you because it's...
This is not... we don't want to be just reading that.
Definitely not kid-friendly.
Oh, man. But to bring it back, right? Again, we could talk about Jay-Z as well for a while.
Yes,
but
we can.
The moment that I knew that we wanted to have you on the show was when I came across your LinkedIn page and you started talking about Careerquakes, which is the coolest term and so apt.
And you sent that to me, didn't
Yes.
you? Was there a reel on it? I mean, basically, yes, you did send me
about Careerquakes, yes. And I was like, this is such a cool concept because I do feel like we've had so many women on the show talking about I was working in corporate and then XYZ happened and everything changed. And it is like an earthquake. Coming from California, right? I'm very familiar with how that works. And it's everything in that instant cracks and changes. But the great news, and I hope this is what is also alluded to in that term, is that then it gives you a forced opportunity to rebuild.
Absolutely. Yeah. I came up with the word 2 months ago.
It's really that new? It's girl, you can this is your bumper
Careerquake.
sticker. Yeah, hashtag Careerquakes.
And I've just decided 5 days ago, this will be my first book.
Yay! Wow.
You heard it here first, Forties Formula exclusive.
Yeah, but just so the audience knows, I mean, that took me 15 months of writing before I came up with that word. So a lot of these things that you see, even your podcast, which is doing so well, congratulations.
Thank you.
There's so much behind this that people don't see, right? And so it's not this immediate thing that comes. And I really wanted to find a term that was describing how you actually loved a career. I loved my career in tech. I had large teams of hundreds and multi-billion-dollar P&L, and I loved going to work every day. So there's all these other terms about, oh, I bet you had a bad boss. Oh, I bet it was toxic. That's why you left. I was like, no, actually, none of that. And I was trying to describe it to people. I was also trying to explain that when there is love, there is grief.
Yes.
And that was the piece that I didn't give myself enough time to do. I went straight into doing instead of being. And I crashed 9 months later last year. And it all just came crashing down to me for me to just actually feel the grief, the loss of, the empty calendars. Suddenly nobody wants your opinion anymore. You don't need to approve anything, right? There's a lot to be said when you are really killing it in the workplace and you are needed, you are valued, your opinion matters, people want to know what you say, the media wants to talk to you, right? It opens doors to any meetings, and then suddenly all of that is gone.
Yeah.
And what, as human beings, we're just expected to because anytime I write about it, a lot of the comments will say, oh, but the best is still ahead of you. Or we are so quick to pivot and we don't give ourselves enough time to experience the quake.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to find a word to say, oh, what's this thing that just rips you apart and questions your whole identity? Again, it doesn't mean there's no goodness in it, but so often we want to flip the page so quickly to say, you should be grateful for all these things and then move on.
Yeah.
I want to try and embrace that piece, which is my biggest learning last year. And then hopefully with so many companies now restructuring and people losing jobs, etc., just give people a term that hopefully they can identify with.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of women, especially if you did start working straight out of uni from your early 20s onwards, your identity is built into that career. That is then who you become. Like people are like, oh, you've done this for so long, that is you. And I guess you do need that time to come to terms with, okay, that was me. I am now shifting into something else. And I guess, are you then finding out who you are? How do you find out who you are? Like once you get to that point of pivot, how do you know who you need to be or who you actually are right now? Because I guess maybe it's not a future thing, but more of a being in the present. How do you realize that who is this person that I am meant to be or am?
Yeah. So the trigger for that was that I've always wanted to be CEO since the age of 9. I was reading business magazines and I'm like, that's going to be me someday. And then I got there and it wasn't the view that I thought it was going to be. So I think that's the trigger point for me. And I was in a very privileged position, although I worked fucking hard to get there, to be able to take an exit with a financial payout.
Yeah.
Which now gives me the runway. I want to recognize not a lot of people will have that opportunity. Also, I don't have kids who are very expensive in Singapore.
Fucking expensive.
Dude, real expensive. Man, I'd be a lot richer if I didn't have those three.
If I have kids, baby, we won't be having this conversation and I'd be still slogging in corporate. So that was the trigger. Then it all happened in a matter of 6 weeks. I find out in a therapy session with our therapist, with my ex-husband, that, he did some things. And then I decided, okay, enough. I was also not feeling it. And it just gave me a reason. And then I signed my papers to leave. So all in a matter of 6 weeks, I went to Canada, took all my stuff, came back to Singapore, and then went to New Zealand, and then went through all that stages. People were like, Happy New Year. I'm like, fuck New Year.
Yeah.
Why are people so happy?
Yeah, I'm in it right now.
So
I'm quaking. Please let me be here.
So for me, it was like two things happening at once.
That
The
must have.
separation and then the separation from the company. So I went to therapy and I did the Hoffman process.
The breathing, is that the breathing?
No.
Different.
That's Wim Hof.
Oh, okay. I was like close again.
Also not a bad idea, but
Yes. It's deep psychotherapy work for a week. You got to check in all devices, etc. And the first part of Hoffman is all about negative love patterns that you learn from mom and dad. Wow. Yeah. So then I continued therapy, and to answer your question, I guess it took me about maybe 12 months or so, but I believe in that 12 months, I met more of myself than I have for my entire life so far. So I think that is the piece. Like your question is how. I think it is to go meet yourself. For me, that was done through therapy and stillness. Not doing anything, which is a really difficult thing to do when you're always doing.
It's that whole, everyone always says, it's being in an uncomfortable situation. So for you, always doing is your default position. And then I guess when you have to come back and do nothing, that's when you realize and you, I guess, find what you are looking for.
Exactly.
Being uncomfortable.
I think that's a great question. What is the more uncomfortable thing to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're not committing a crime or anything bad, like that is the answer. Like it was more uncomfortable for me to sit still.
Yeah.
And I think, so Careerquake is going to be your first book.
Yes.
Relationship Quake might be your second book, right? Because I think what you just asked applies to a lot of women going through patterns of situations of divorce and separation where is it worse for you to stay in this relationship than to go?
Yes.
Because divorce is hard. I've been through a divorce myself. It's very hard. But there is a point where you have to say, is it better to stay or to go?
Yeah.
And I think your heart knows that answer.
Yeah.
It does.
And I think it's more difficult when you have children.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, those kids are not his.
Okay.
That dude, I wish him the
Okay.
best. But yeah, my current husband is luckily the father of the kids.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It is, because the easier thing is to stay.
It is. It often is until it isn't. It's one of those things. And when you were mentioning about career quakes being who are you now without the career, I do think that a lot of women in their 40s and then more generally, I'd say in their 50s, go through that with empty nester syndrome when the kids grow up and get out.
Oh, yes.
And if you've been, particularly if you've been a full-time parent, it's like, what do I do? Like, it's not that people aren't inviting you to meetings, is that your house is quiet.
Yes. And if you have a spouse, it's, oh, hello.
Yeah, you meet that person again.
Yes.
You're like, oh, you are still here?
Yes.
Hope I still like you.
Yes, because it's the thing, because everyone, like, I guess in different situations, your personality is going to change, your priorities are going to change, where before your priority were your kids or your job, all of a sudden that's not a priority anymore. And you're like, what am I going to do?
Yes.
And I think with a lot of women, it is the doing, because I think as women, you are constantly doing, whether you're working or whatever it is, there's always a do. There's never the not do.
Yeah, the downtime.
Yes.
Yeah. I always say I imagine a world where there's downtime. I can't imagine how many decades that is away from me. My youngest is 1. So I just restarted the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're here for a while in the doing.
I can tell you one of the weirdest things though. So obviously my kids are a little bit older than yours. Yesterday we watched TV in Sunday afternoon. That never happens. I was like, wow.
Like in silent? Like, meaning the
Like,
TV
as in
is
the kids
but like
were downstairs.
no one else was screaming,
Yeah, well, the kids were
murdering, hurting
downstairs
each other?
doing their own thing. And we're like, we're actually watching TV on a Sunday afternoon.
Wait, you mean you and Amin were watching TV as adults?
As
Oh, I don't know
adults.
when that, I can't even fathom what you're saying.
Yes, that's just a
You
weird
meant
situation.
the kids are watching
No.
TV quietly without hurting
No.
each other.
Okay,
Okay,
I
that's still,
mean,
we still don't have
It was
that.
me and Amin watching an adult program, like what was it, The Rookie on Netflix, without the kids interfering.
Her best life right here.
Oh yeah, having a cup of tea that was still hot.
Oh, wow.
Braggart. So we were talking off air a bit, Uma, about your own podcast. So we all, disclosure for those of you watching from Singapore, we record in the same studio. And your podcast is called Raw with Uma, which I love, by the way. Second thing so I said first thing was Careerquake, so that I saw on LinkedIn. Second thing that made me want to get you on here was Raw with Uma, because I was like, this girl, she knows how to just like chat real, and she's not going to come in here with a polished script. She's going to come in here and tell us how it is. Has there been any moments in your podcast, because it is truly unscripted, unfiltered, honest, that made you almost, feel overwhelmed with the vulnerability in that moment?
Yeah. So the way the podcast runs is that I don't know who the guest is.
I love that concept.
Incredible.
By the way. Wow.
I know the moments, like I know they exist, moments before the cameras turn on. And they're coming there to ask questions and have a dialogue. And the most rawest moment is probably when I did a live show, my first live show.
Wow.
And this woman came out after 8 years of silence about her invisible disability. She had a combination of life-threatening diseases that you cannot see, including lupus. And the irony was that she worked for a healthcare provider, but when she was at the hospital bed, they expected her to get on a call to solve an issue.
I can't.
That's just one of many examples that she shared. And that day also happened to be her birthday. So it was a full circle moment for her to just come out and talk about everything that happened then. And I think that is the power of vulnerability. I think a lot of times, and also there's this thing about, well, are you oversharing or not? But I think in those moments, I have come to believe that a lot of our stories are shared, that we are not alone in them. And I believe that episode is probably still the most watched from season 1. So that was probably the most.
Oh, that is.
You could hear a pin drop in
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think sharing heals?
Yes, I believe sharing heals. I think sharing connects. I think the question to ask yourself, like when I write posts on LinkedIn, there are days where I go, am I oversharing? And so I think if you should share if it's a scar, but not if it's a scab.
Oh, I like
Can
that, girl.
you
Yeah.
break that down as an example?
Yes. So I think if you are sharing because you want to put out there and expect people to help you, I mean, that's therapist. The audience didn't sign up to be your therapist.
Yeah.
Oh, girl.
Yeah.
But
So if it's still raw,
Yeah.
if the wound is still raw,
Yes.
now's not the right time.
Yeah.
But once you've managed to heal from it, you can
Yeah.
then help others with
And you
it.
don't have to fully heal.
Okay.
I think even if the scar is fresh,
Okay.
right? You can say, "Hey, I'm still figuring it out," which is what I say for all my perimenopause posts.
Yeah.
Because it's not a full scar yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not through it.
It's a daily scar.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I think that's the difference. But I also don't want to judge anyone who chooses to share because, firstly, we started a conversation about women being invisible. So, hey, like if they're taking a step out there to share, like, okay, go for it. But if you do want to ask yourself the question, if it's oversharing or not, I think if you're sharing to connect versus sharing to get help,
Yeah.
I think the scar versus scab, then
That's
if you're
such a
doing the
great
first,
analogy.
then I think absolutely.
That was a topic that one of our guests, Simone,
Yeah.
talked about on our show. She basically said that
Was it stranger dumping?
Yeah, she couldn't help herself, but like oversharing for her was almost like a trauma dump. Like she would,
yes.
she would just like
Yeah.
verbally just say everything to the point where she was on a plane and the lady behind her said, "Can you just stop now? We're trying to sleep and we know your whole life story." And I guess just sort of realizing
Yeah.
when is the right time
Yeah.
to.
There's a time for therapy and there's a time for, I love the scar. Like you said, it can be a fresh scar. Like you said, you don't have to be, I feel like you, Uma, are the queen of messy middles.
Oh,
You know, with Careerquake. It's like you're willing to talk when you're in it.
I'm going to hashtag that.
Yeah. Okay, Queen of again, you heard it here first on the podcast.
Loads of us here today.
No, you are so comfortable talking about when it is messy and painful and unpredictable.
Yeah.
And that is not where everyone's comfy talking.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like I said, that's I think what draws me into your LinkedIn time and again is like it's like, oh, what is she in now? Like what insight does she have from the inside?
Yes.
Oh man. Now, given that, okay, Queen of Messy Middles,
Yes.
what are your anchors? So when things are tumultuous,
Yes.
what does pull you back to kind of that authentic self that you've now discovered?
Yeah. It's very non-glamorous things.
I like it. Go.
Saturday morning walks with my best friend where we tell each other things that maybe no one else would ever say to us. There is no friendship tax in our conversations.
I love that.
Because I think often with women, there's a friendship tax, right? And you want to say that your friends are the most perfect thing in the world, but we have a shared understanding that we will always hold the mirror to each other. And I think it's also another form of therapy for both of us to do. Okay, here's how my week went. Here's the questions I'm asking, or here's what I'm really struggling with. The second thing I think that's been the most powerful is stillness. And it comes randomly to me when suddenly I have emotions that are unprocessed. And it shows up in the most random moments. There was one evening, I had an amazing dinner with a really nice friend, and I'm on the way home, and then I'm just like upset. And I don't even know where it's coming from. And before, what I would do is just get myself to bed and I'll be okay in the morning. So I decided, okay, I got home and I just sat on the floor in my living room and I just cried. And I don't know what I'm crying about, right? But I'm like, okay, it's here for a reason. My soul is knocking. I don't know what it is. And then the next day, I took a walk. And I think nature does this thing about you don't need to impress or do anything. It has a way of just hugging you
Yeah.
when you're in nature. So that's also my go-to thing.
No
It's
nature
just
text.
like get out into nature, especially like having your feet on the ground, grounding, and just like sitting on a park bench or just walking, not listening to anything, no stimulations. So those are my go-to.
Yeah, and those all sound lovely.
Yeah. And I think what you're doing is you're actually doing what's human. Again, you're being present with a friend, connecting with somebody, being real, and then getting out there and just being in the world.
Yeah.
And that is something that, again, will, I guess, bring you back and help you stay grounded, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, I learned this 3H from my therapist, which I found to be helpful because I am the person who doesn't know how to ask for help. And so there was one time I pinged my best friend and said, hey, are you going to be in later this evening? And she answers me like 2 hours later because she's at the beach. She checks in with her husband and then replies, oh, I think we're going to be in. So then I'm like, can I come over? So then I go over and then I'm like, you know, and she's like, your message has zero urgency whatsoever. So now we use Simon Sinek's, do you have 8 minutes? When I get there, my therapist says, look, I think you should ask them, like, what is it that you need? And the 3H is, do you want to be held? Do you want to be heard? Do you want to be helped? And she says, you can't be helped without first being held or heard. Wow. And so now I have language.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to express that to friends. So I'll text them and I go, okay, 3H, I just want to be held. And then maybe I want to be heard.
Yeah.
And then maybe I want to be helped, but sometimes I don't want to be helped depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah. Talk to me about this. Do you have 8 minutes? Is that like a
Yes.
conversation starter, or how does that?
Yeah, so Simon Sinek tells the story of his very good friend who reaches out to just, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? And he's, yeah, good, all good. But that was her way of saying, I need help. But it doesn't come through the messages. And then he finds out later. And he's like, this is not working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a code. So he says, because a decent conversation takes about 8 minutes for someone to just relay what's on their mind. So he says, okay, next time, text me and say, I need 8 minutes.
That's
Wow.
so cool.
Yeah, because it's true. Like when you reach out to someone, you know, if everyone's like, yeah, everything's good, you don't then want to turn around and say, well, you know, something's really shit and something's going down.
Yeah.
Because how do you bring that up? And using a code like that is just such a great way to say what you want to say without it being too much, I guess.
And that's the other thing. Yeah, I didn't know that, like, you know, it takes about 8 minutes to get into, you know, what my editor taught me, the nut graph of a conversation. You know, you think, oh, I'm going to have to talk to this person for an hour, or oh, I'm just going to have to blurt it right out and freak out with no context.
Yeah.
But 8 minutes is like a very cozy amount of time. It's like, we all got 8 minutes, especially for a friend.
Yes.
Especially for a friend. Well, you've given us, first of all, so many elements of what I'm about to ask you in our final question, which is, what is your 40s formula? So again, we have actually like literally formulaic data from you in terms of numbers, but I would like to hear more qualitatively, you know, what are the pieces of advice, the few kind of nuggets that you can give to women in our age group looking to thrive through this decade?
Wow, I'm still figuring it out. What I've discovered so far is that it's so important to, if you want to meet yourself and whatever vehicles that works best for you. For me, that's therapy. And I have come to treat therapy like going to the gym. And
I love that.
I used to only call my therapist when something happened instead of now we meet every 2 weeks, regardless if I have something to talk about or not. So whatever medium you want to use to meet yourself, and then I guess just asking yourself if all dimensions of you are really showing up in the way that you would like to show up. It's okay if you don't want all of them to show up, but I want all of me to show up. So I feel like I'm in my reinvention stage. I believe that the 40s are where you ask all the questions, and the 50s is where, apparently life is going to be really, really amazing. And then I'm looking at Melinda Gates in 60 and then Oprah at 70.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah. So I'm looking at them going, okay, that's great. I think 40s is also the period of perimenopause for most women in the world. And this can really throw spanner in the works and give you more questions to doubt yourself. So just remember that sometimes your hormones are playing a role, a major role in whatever lens that you're looking at life at, all the questions that you're asking. Definitely the meet yourself, your health and your mental state. And I believe I learned this at the Hoffman process. There's 4 parts to us. Your physical body, your logical mind, that's the one that wants to do and be logical. Then your emotional child or self. So every day that person is different. Sometimes it's a child. Sometimes it's 5-year-old Uma that needs something. Sometimes is exactly who I am today. And then
Uma 5.0.
Yeah, not yet, 3 years. The last part is your soul. So if you think of it as a horse carriage, the horse is the emotional child. It just wants to go and play with other horses, right? Doesn't want to be on the leash, right? And then the rider is the logical self, telling the child where to go, right? And then the entire carriage is the body. But the passenger is your soul. And your soul is telling the rider where to go.
Yeah.
And I think I only found my soul recently. Yeah, like I didn't know she was there. Yeah. So now I can see her on most days. So yeah, I think 40s is like the best time ever for women. It's the best and the hardest, I think, because you're somewhere where you got maybe some decent money, right? You've kind of figured out what you like, you don't like. Then your body is starting to send you signals that question yourself. But I think it's the great decade of being a questionologist for yourself.
I always say that when I set New Year's resolutions, or should I say when I do my end of year letter.
Which I love, by the way. Your end of year letter is incredible.
Last year was a tough one. But I always say, was this a year that asked questions or a year that answered them? Because typically those things kind of go one by one. And if you can kind of look at the year previous, if it was a big question asking year, you're probably about to get a lot of answers, like you said about your 50s.
Yeah.
And if it was a big answering year, you might have some stuff questioned up in the next year. And it's a nice way to ride those waves.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
thank you so much for being here with us. We are so honored to have you, Uma, and it's just been a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's great to be
Uma.
here.